I think, first of all, I wouldn't know how to grow up any other way because I am Puerto Rican. You know, born in Puerto Rico, raised in New York City. Um, I'm glad I was born Puerto Rican. You know, I thank the Lord first and foremost because of my parents, the way they raised me, my beliefs. I'm in love with my country, Puerto Rico. My thing is that it was good and bad at that time because Puerto Ricans were the only Latinos being acknowledged in the early 60s, right? So when there were bad things happening in the press, whether they were Cubans, Dominicans, Mexicans, they would say Puerto Ricans because that's all they knew. I think we were the first ones to make that impact, that crossover, because being part of, we're a Commonwealth, but we're part of the United States, you know, so we both kind of spoke both languages, English and Spanish. But Puerto Ricans too, I've never felt racism. It was either white or black. We were like the referees, you know, the Puerto Rican, everybody got together with Puerto Ricans. And I think we were the first to make an impact and a change in the city of New York City. As a Puerto Rican, I guess, like I said, in my earlier years, I couldn't really understand the difference because I grew up with different cultures. In my earlier years, I grew up with more Italians. Then in my later years, like from 10 to 11 years of age, I grew up with black and more Hispanics, right? So I really never really felt, I never grew up totally with Puerto Rican, like say in the barrio. But my thing was then, I didn't know what a Colombian was, I didn't know what a Cuban was, I didn't know what a Dominican was, I just knew what the Puerto Ricans were. That was the only thing, because at that time, that's all that was spoken about, Puerto Rican. We had a politician called Hernand V at that time. Who else was around? The music that was being heard all over New York City was Fania music, was Celia Cruz, Willie Colon, Tito Puente. The commercials, the biggest product called, it was Goya at that time, and it still is, you know. But that's the kind of impact we had. So everything came out and revolved around Puerto Rico.
When did you realize that you wanted to become a musician?
When I couldn't steal anymore, you know. No, realistically, I think I've had this urge since early childhood. You know, my dad plays guitar, and my dad always, and my mom always loved music. So I saw that early age in my house. And since I was about 5, 6 years old, I was always either playing with his guitar or I used to play drums, some kind of percussion, or I would take a broomstick and I would mimic things that I would see on the Ed Sullivan Show. You know, that's how, now you can tell my age, you know. We're going back now into the early 60s, maybe early 70s, when I can tell the difference who was who. When you heard Cheche Colé in my house with Willie Colon and Hector Lavoe, when you heard Celia Cruz with Tito Puente, with Santito Colon, when you heard Gran Combo, you know, you can identify those people. And that was my type of upbringing within the house, within my parents' collection. Then we had a radio, there was a radio station called WABC. That was with Cousin Brucey. And he used to play all the Anglo favorites. That's with the Beatles, the Jackson 5, Donny Osmond, all these other things. Then we had WWRL, which was R&B. And you had James Brown, Four Tops, Temptations, Brendan and Tabulations, Kool and the Gang. So I had a mixture of music. So all those different types of music contribute to what I am today, you know, because my liking has not only been in salsa, but I had the ability to listen to all those types of music. My hero is my dad. My dad came to the United States when his mother was dying at the age of 14. He was shipped from Puerto Rico to New York City, Brooklyn, and he did night school, and he had a struggle on his own. And my dad became almost like an engineer in electronics. He had 2 years of college, and my dad worked for 32 years with General Instruments in Hicksville, Long Island. And that's my mentor. That's my hero. So before any artist, that's my, like I said, that's my hero. I have a lot of him with the musical talent and the personality. I look like my mom, a little bit like my dad. My dad said, no, you have my intelligence and your mother's looks. But my dad, no, I love him so much because he showed me how to be a better person. I've done a lot of mistakes in life, but I've not taken them from my dad. I think if I would have followed his advice, I would have done better, and I would have been a better dad. I'd been a better person today. But sometimes we tend to do things on our own.
What was the worst mistake, or perhaps the mistake you regret the most?
My drug use. Because I wasn't raised on drugs. I got into drugs when I got into the music business, like 1 or 2 years after, or maybe 3 years after, because I thought at that time there were people with names in the industry indulging drugs, where I'm not going to mention, and I thought that being part of, for me to be part of that kind of group, I needed to indulge in drugs, and I fell through those cracks.
How did you come out of that?
After, I think it was 1991. Well, before that, 1986, I was in my first rehab. I did about 5 rehabs, to get better. And this year, April, is 14 years clean and sober. So it's been a long time. And with the help of my family, with my wife, Hernand, and I can sincerely say, if you don't have that foundation and the love of your family, it's really hard.
How did the music help you overcome that obstacle, that challenge?
Well, the music it's always been a challenge for me. I think what really helped me come out of that was God's blessing and my family, because what happens, you have to put the music aside and deal with you as a person and deal with your problems first so that you can continue into the music business. Because I wasn't a functional addict, I wouldn't go to the gigs. You would never see me on stage stoned, because I wouldn't go, I wouldn't show up. I would be very irresponsible. So a lot of people today can't believe that I was indulging in cocaine and I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day and I drank, They said, no, not Tito. Yeah, I had a past too. So you never really see the gain. You just keep on striving to be the best you can at what you do, and hope that people accept what you do. And that's how I've seen my life in general, taking it one step at a time, like my sobriety, one step at a time. And in the music business, I've had my ups and downs. The drug part was like the 10 years, the worst 10 years. But I think musically, I gotten better throughout the years, because I've gotten to know different producers. Like in 1988, when I collaborated with Sergio George, which my first hit was Sonambulo as a soloist. Then we got into the American thing, which is I'll Always Love You. Then we did the Mi Enamórate, I Like It Like That, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's gotten better throughout the years. I've gotten a little, as we say, atrevido, getting into this reggaeton thing now at 46 years of age. But you know what? In life, if you don't take a chance, you don't grow. Well, the ironic thing that, and you'll have it in this camera, the ironic thing is that the composer to that song was the one that married my wife and I. His name is Tony Pavon. Tony Pavon is also a reverend and a minister. And when I was going through my difficult time with the drugs and alcohol, he took me under his wings. And I used to work with him in distributing. He had Remo Records many years ago, and he would make sure I was there every day, to guide me. He would have me reading the Bible. And Tony, in 1967, was the creator of I Like It Like That. He recorded with Pete Rodriguez. So in 1994, Sergio George, which was my neighbor, my good friend for like over 25 years, calls me and says, Tito, they want us to do a soundtrack for a movie called I Like It Like That. But the group was called the Blackout All Stars. So it was a collaboration of musicians that got together. So we did it like that. In 1996, this young man takes it and does a house version. And that's when it blew up worldwide. The way I can best describe this, imagine a young man sitting in a sofa in Brooklyn, in the projects, admiring an LP, looking at Willie Colon and Hector Lavoe, and then on stage one day, turning to my right and looking at Hector Lavoe. You know, it's unmanageable. I mean, you just don't imagine sometimes, but it's like a dream come true. You know, it's like to say your idol may be Michael Jordan, and meanwhile you're playing ball with Michael Jordan. You know, so that's the kind of dream that came true for me. Remember, my production today is like my first and my last, because if I die tomorrow, at least I left something good behind. I don't do a production just to do it. I take it to heart. I've listened up to 400 songs to pick out 10 songs. I listen to everything that they send me, because you never know. You never know. My past experience have shown me that never turn anything down, because you never know what's in the package, man. I've been to Spain. They want to get me to Egypt. They're calling me from Korea. When was I going to think, you know, a guy growing up in Brooklyn, that I was going to go to these countries to sing salsa? Because they don't want to hear rock. They want to hear salsa, you know? And to me, it's fascinating. One of my best tours that I've done in 30 years has been Japan. Because Japan, you know, to see these Japanese not speaking fluently Spanish, but enjoying the salsa rhythm to capacity, 4,000 or 5,000 people, that's very impressive.